It's time for the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. The podcast you look forward to for all of your news and reviews of the best comic books hitting stands. Whether it's DC,
Batman, Wonder Woman,
Marvel,
Spider-Man,
Image,
Spawn, Saga,
Boom,
Once and Future, Power Rangers,
or whatever book or publisher you follow,
we cover them all here.
this is the place for you.
That's right, it's for everyone.
This is the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast.
Let's get it.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I am your host, Theo. Got a very exciting episode, or at least it's exciting for me. This episode, I sit down with comic book writer Stephanie Phillips and artist Aaron Kuder, and we are talking about Planet She-Hulk. Planet She-Hulk #1 released this past Wednesday, and it's out on shelves at comic shops everywhere. And it's the spinoff from Imperial, the miniseries from Jonathan Hickman, as he sets out the story of finding out who not only killed Bruce Banner's son, but also killed a bunch of other galactic rulers in an attempt to cause chaos in the galaxy. But I was very excited when Marvel said that Stephanie and Aaron were both available and wanted to get their insight on the series and what they're putting into it. Now, again, issue #1 is on shelves already, so there will be some light spoilers in this interview that I did with Stephanie and Aaron. So if you have not read the first issue yet, press pause on either YouTube or your audio platform. Go take a read and then come on back and listen to the rest of the episode. But after that interview, I will do something that I haven't done in a while, and that is give my top 5 for this past week. I actually finally had a chance to sit down and give a bunch of books a good read and come up with my top 5 books for the week. But here it is, my interview with Stephanie Phillips and Aaron Kuder, talking about Planet She-Hulk #1, which again is out on shelves for Marvel Comics. And I will see you all on the other side. Hey folks, it's Theo, and I am very excited today. Today, I don't get to talk about Batman. I get to talk about my second favorite character, my favorite Marvel character, Jennifer Walters, aka Green Goddess, aka She-Hulk. And Planet She-Hulk came out on Wednesday, and to help me talk about that, I have with me today the creative mind behind Planet She-Hulk, Stephanie Phillips, Aaron Kuder. Welcome to the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. How are you guys doing?
Hey, great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, super excited.
So I think the best way for us to get started, I think we need to go back a little bit to see to get us to where Planet She-Hulk is. And that is Imperial, the miniseries that Jonathan Hickman is writing. And we know that from there, Bruce Banner, aka Hulk, aka Worldbreaker, has brought his cousin, Jennifer, and has also brought Amadeus Cho, the other Hulk, to Sakaar, or the new Sakaar, because his son has died. And they are searching out the wheres and the whys behind that. But in doing so, Bruce has asked Jennifer to stay behind and to keep the peace, because we all know from Worldbreaker, World War Hulk, that Sakaar is not a peaceful place. It is a place that drives on chaos. And so he asked Jen to stay behind, keep the peace, and he will be back in 5 days. Yeah. And so we get to that one shot that came out a few months ago, and we see that, day 5 comes and goes, and there's no Bruce. And so now we get to Planet She-Hulk, and Stephanie, kick us off with that. So we know that now it's day 6 and beyond. Bruce has not returned, and Jen is still keeping the peace. So tell us what got us there.
Yeah. Yeah, so essentially, like, Hulk knew that without Hiro Kala, his son, in charge of New Sakaar, that there was going to be a real power vacuum, that a lot of people would want the throne, and that it would be really like a volatile time for New Sakaar. So kind of puts Jen there to say, like, keep the peace. 5 days of mourning. Each day represents one of the 5 wives of Hiro Kala that we see in that one-shot story, which was a cool opportunity to kind of introduce them. Like really giving them a feature in that one shot. And so each of the 5 days represents one of the 5 wives, a day of mourning for them. And that's kind of where our story kicks off with Jen, very reluctant to be in space. Like she's her whole life on Earth. She's an attorney. She had a relationship. She had all these things on Earth. So now she's kind of whisked away to do this thing that she's like, your family, I'll do it for you, of course. But it is no longer a 5-day adventure. So she's annoyed.
And I guess my first question, based on that, this is really a major role for her. This isn't like Avengers Assembled where she is just a part of a team. She's it. Other than our good friend the consulate, she's it. She's the yes or no, despite this is something really new for her. So what goes into your thoughts, knowing Jen's history as a character? How do you put together her psyche for this new role for her while not losing everything that we know about Jen Walters?
I see it as she's really a fish out of water. She's still the Jen Walters we've always had. She's an attorney. She has these things she very much likes about her life, and she's doing something as a favor, but she's doing it as a favor, but she's still her. So being in this world of New Sakaar, not being traditionally a cosmic character in the Marvel universe, it's pretty different for her to kind of figure out the dealings. And part of the purpose behind that one shot was also to show she's like, I'm gonna solve a murder case and justice will be served. And they're like, you're on New Sakaar, we murder people over breakfast. Like, what are you about? You're gonna solve a murder case? Like, to show just how out of her element she really is. But I think that's the fun of it. Like, Jen is going to clash against it, but we also have a lot of that traditional Byrne elements of breaking the fourth wall. And Aaron has done such a cool job making her so emotive in those moments of like talking to the reader, like turning to you, like it feels like you're really immersed in that moment with her, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I want to say that was that was really fun, because at first I wasn't sure if she was talking to me or if she was talking, to the character. And so there will be spoilers in this, because again, the issue is out. If you haven't read it yet, we can't be friends. But but we are introduced in Planet She-Hulk to some new characters who have been around Sakaar, but with this new power vacuum that is going on, they are now making their way out. When coming up with the story, and I know you mentioned this would be somewhat like a Game of Thrones type thing. Yeah. When coming up, how vicious did you want this story to be, considering that Game of Thrones type feel that you said this would be?
I think in terms of story, I really wanted to create a world. So, I mean, and a lot of that also comes from Aaron and some of the designs that we have put together of these different characters that are all pretty much new to this story. Like, we really, we just had like this sandbox that's kind of brand new for readers, brand new for us. Like, that's, there will be some familiar faces, but you're dealing with a lot of these characters that a lot of my goal was to try to give them a lot of this depth as well. Like the 5 wives are going to play a role in it. There's a cult called the Thousand Eyes that will come into play. Some of the people that want to take the throne. We have somebody named Corbin Blackjaw, who's kind of like the guy that's out in front, like clearly positioning himself like, I'm going to be the king. So that's And then I think once you see them too, there's one character in particular that I will shut up for a moment and let Aaron talk about the design for, because Rowan Creed was this one character that I was like, I kind of have an idea of what he would sound like in my head or things like that. And then Aaron sent me the design. I was like, this is exactly how I'm going to write this. It added so much to how I see his trajectory. I don't know, Aaron, if you want to talk about, because you said some cool stuff about designing him.
Yeah, let me ask Aaron. So when Sakaar is a world of, I mean, many different types of beings. So when this series was pitched to you, did the brain cells just all light up with the ideas of how you want to draw these characters?
Well, that can happen regardless. If I just sit down and start doodling, the wildness will come. The wild things will pop out of my brain. But the trick is to really capture the spirit of the story and the characters, and like the Rowan Creed character. He's a merchant, and he's well, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say he's kind of a person that can put himself in any situation. And so I thought a lot about like, the like retailers that I know, or people that are on the business end of things. And so yeah, I mean, without visuals here, it's kind of silly to talk about them, but those are the things that I draw inspiration from. And I try very hard to find that balance between what we know on a social level. We have a kind of a social mindset for iconic imagery and stuff like that. So I try to take a balance of what we know and then spin it a little bit to give it its own unique breath. Like, yeah, I mean, again, without visuals, it's really hard to talk about this stuff.
So let me just say, after reading it, when I was reading Rowan Creed, and again looking at the character, I don't know why, but Oswald Cobblepot just kept popping in my head. The idea of someone who's always
kind of looks like a penguin. Yeah,
who always has his hands into something, who has his ears to the ground, and he's just that person. Jen wants him to be her best friend because she needs him to get off the planet. She wants to go home. Like Stephanie was saying, she doesn't want to be there. She felt she did what she needed to do. Bruce is not back. It's on him. So,
yep.
So speaking of Jen, Aaron, Jen, unlike most of the other female characters within the Marvel Universe, is a strong, powerful, muscular character who's yet beautiful as well. When drawing figures or characters like that, how do you balance it out to where she's not too powerful, but yet still remains feminine for who she is?
I think that's a balance that I try to find with all of my everybody I render. There's never just this apex design of a character that they're all ripped and savage, and there's always some softness in the way that I like to tell visual stories. And yeah, I think with Jen, it's that the one of her defining characteristics is that she's completely unapologetic. She's very New Yorker that way. She has a very strong will, but also she's willing to listen sometimes. Like those are things that I like to tap into to find the visual story beat, as it were.
Stephanie, give readers an idea. Actually, this is for both of you. Give readers an idea of the collaboration between you two, getting the script, sending it to Aaron, getting the pencils, going. What does that day look like for the two of you?
I mean, for me, I think the more I learn, like the designs that Aaron is putting together and seeing the pages, like it's a lot of fun to write for Aaron. Like, I don't know how much he's seen of it yet, but I mean, there's definitely a lot of like, I get to talk directly to Aaron when I'm writing. So like in the issue 5 that I just wrapped up recently, like there are a lot of things where I'll like ask him questions in the script, or, you know, I want his input on those things. We've had quite a few phone calls. I love getting to text Aaron. I'm always like, I hope Aaron's not annoyed, but I'm just like, what do you think? Like, what do you?
Not at all. Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, you know, it's really great. I love, you know, with anything, whether it's like, you know, you're meeting a friend, working with an artist, Aaron and I think from my perspective, we clicked really fast, and but I also clicked really fast with Jen. So this project feels like such a big like clicking moment. Just like everything really came together so well. Even getting the project, like I remember I was in the Marvel offices, and Hickman was talking about the Imperial story and some of these books that might spin out of it. And I had been talking to the editors about a different book, and I was like, I think, you know, that one I could be really good at. And like I left that day, and all night all I could think about was Jen. And I was like, I've never really thought about what I would do with her. And now, like, because I know what the Imperial story is from what he said, back into the office the next day, and like I think I pulled CV aside and a few other people, and immediately I was like, I was wrong. I need Planet She-Hulk. And they were all just like, okay. And like that day they were just like, yep, she claimed it, she's doing Planet She-Hulk. And I was like, cool. So that was like, you know, I think the project just feels like it was like everything is right, everything is kind of clicking. I get Jen's voice. I really love talking through her. Aaron is been incredible to work with. So it, like everything about it feels so perfect and exciting.
Yeah, just to jump right into my side of it, I absolutely agree. It's been just a complete delight to work with Stephanie. From moment one, they actually offered me She-Hulk twice, and the first time I turned it down. Not mostly because it's kind of intimidating to draw a female character for so long. It's not normally something in my wheelhouse, but I've like with Jen, it's just clicking. So I don't want to. I didn't want to shy away from that, but also like the idea that this story was so enwrapped in this other story arc of Hickman's, kind of just, it wasn't really my bag in my opinion, or at the time. And fortunately, Jordan, our editor, like kind of laid it out for me that it's not nearly as dependent as this other thing. And it's its own story, and its own has its own life, and also that in combination with my love for Planet Hulk, the original. Yeah, no, it was. I'm so glad I changed my mind, because this has just been a really like a dream project.
So you mentioned Planet Hulk, and we know that by the time we get to the end, Sakaar has really consumed Bruce. Does new Sakaar have the potential of consuming Jen?
Do you mean the way that Hulk like came back to Earth and like started World War Hulk?
Yeah.
It's tough to try to answer without saying like where the story is headed. I mean, I think I can say her trajectory while on Sakaar is going to be very different from Hulk's. Her motivations are different. I mean, you see it immediately, like in the first issue, she's saying like, I really don't want any piece of this. I want to leave there isn't a tie. I mean, Hulk with the Warbound and finding love on the planet, those are things that I think really tie him there. And with such strong tethers, she's going to have a very different experience on Sakaar. Yeah, I think that's the best I can say without saying like where this story's going.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it, but just knowing how hostile and the effects that it had on Bruce. And again, Bruce's psyche is completely different than Jen's, you know, no matter which way you look at it. But, you know, sometimes a place can change you, you know, and, you know, she mentions early in the issue, you know, she's away from her boyfriend, she's in a different galaxy on a different planet, and it's just So let me ask you this as we begin to bring things to a close. We've had writers like Dan Slott and John Byrne, and we've had artists like Emilio Lasso, who drew during much of Rainbow Rowell's run. What do the two of you, what lasting mark do you want to leave on Jennifer Walters when everything is said and done?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
I
Branding.
love that. Yeah. I don't know that I think too much about that kind of thing ahead of time. I mean, I really want to tell a solid story about like how I see She-Hulk and how we can put her in this situation. The more I'm reading through it, the more I'm like loving these characters. And there's something I said to Aaron the other day that between him and colorist Sonia Obek, there's a character that he's one of the gladiators that you'll see more and more. And he becomes so lovable to me that it's like, that's a cool thing to get to like feel really like, oh, I really like see this person walking around, and like the, you know, the coloring that he has on some of his tattoos and stuff, and he feels so real. And it's like, it's kind of funny to think that this is somebody that like, it took me so long to figure out what his name was going to be and not make it sound like overly cheesy. And like the amount of like, probably notepads I have with weird names that I was trying to give to people or use, and to be like from that moment on the notepad to seeing this guy Quaid like walking around with She-Hulk is like, that's a really cool thing. So I like that. I don't know if that's like an lasting impact to put those things into the She-Hulk conversation, but for me it is personally to see that.
Yeah, I would agree that the side characters are one of the best things about the book, in my opinion, at least for drawing it. I think one, you know, and She-Hulk is one of those characters that she has that breath of stepping back from the spotlight of her own title. You know, she's one of those characters that, you know, she's not constantly enwrapped in angst or trying to live up to the ideals of mentors in the past. She does good for good's sake, and I really love that human element to her. But with especially with the characters on this planet, it's that one of the things that I'm really loving about it is that Stephanie has such a well-defined idea of those side characters. Very often I'll get a script or I'll get some sort of description of a character, and it seems like we're fleshing it out, and that's fine. That's just a different way to process the creative thread. But it's really fun to know when I get the design down, and we all agree that when you have that definition of a character, it allows you to live in that skin easier. And so you can pull in more nuance into the storytelling. have one character like constantly fidgeting because they're a fidgeter, stuff like that. It's little little background notes, as I like to think of it. So yeah, I don't think either of us really think of this as like creating a legacy, because I feel like that's kind of a trap that no one can live up to, or if they do, it doesn't float my boat anyway. But yeah, just telling the best story we can.
Well, let me just tell you, Aaron, I opened to that double page splash, and that very first image of Jen coming down with that huge, and I'm always gonna call it the Final Fantasy broadsword that Cloud always gets. She's coming down. If I could get that posterized, I would pay good money for it. It is such a beautiful picture, and I just love how there was little touches where you changed up the art just a little bit to show, okay, this is a backstory, and now we're back in the present. And this is a future story, and this is now in the backstory, and now we're back in the present. So I just absolutely love it. And I love the idea of the side characters because they could be just as important as the main character. Rowan, he has no qualms about being the shiesty salesman. You could see that. He even tells her, hey, a good salesman knows what his customer wants before they do. But Corbin is the one that we all need to watch out for. And I'm not going to spoil the end of issue 1 because you all need to read it. Or again,
come on, he's lovable. What are you talking about?
I mean, he marries one of the 5 wives just after the mourning period. So you gotta wonder about people like that. You gotta wonder about the wife as well. But Planet She-Hulk, it is on shelves now. Issue 1 is out. Solicits for issue 2 and 3 are out as well. So I just want you to know, Marvel, if you're listening, I'm contributing a lot. I've bought all 3 of the open order covers, as well as the incentive, as well as one store exclusive. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
But it is
we'll send you the
no
price.
Yeah, again, she's been one of my favorite characters since. I've been collecting comics since I was 9, so that's how long it's been. But as always, before we close things out, we get into rapid fire, and as always, rapid fire, we have 2 choices. There are no right or wrong answers. I will not ask about She-Hulk since I know what that answer is anyway. So to kick things off, we go to Stephanie first. Stephanie, Voltron or Power Rangers?
Power Rangers.
Wow, really? Okay. Aaron, Green Lantern or Green Arrow?
Green Lantern.
All right. Stephanie, An or Korra?
What was the first one?
An.
Han.
Okay. Aaron, Gundam or Robotech?
I think I'm showing my age here when I say Gundam.
No, I would have said Gundam too. So
Okay.
Okay. I'm Robotech all the way. I don't care. I'm 50. I'll see it.
The same.
Yeah. Speed Racer or Racer X?
I'm sorry, what was the first one again?
Speed Racer or Racer X?
Oh, Speed Racer.
Okay. Aaron, Batman or Moon Knight?
Moon Knight, hands down.
Okay. All right. This is the last one, and it's for both of you. Batman the Animated Series or Justice League Unlimited?
Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, I gotta give it up to Batman as well. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah. He's just because it started it all off.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is probably the story for everyone. The animated series, Batman kicked it off for everything else.
Yeah.
So that means that Batman, everyone gets that question. Batman the animated series now leads by 3 in our contest between that one and Justice League Unlimited. Stephanie Phillips, Aaron Kuder, how can fans keep up with you if they want to know what's going on in the world?
I'm on both Instagram and TikTok as Snap Crackle Steph, like Rice Krispie treats, so kind of easy to remember. Yeah, that's I think about all the social media I have. So.
I'm on Instagram at Aaron Kuder Art, Blue Sky at as Aaron Kuder, and yeah, just Google me. I have a unique name.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining me here on the Comic Bank Comic Book Podcast. Again, Planet She-Hulk is on shelves. It is, of course, my book of the week. Thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
So again, I want to thank Stephanie Phillips and Aaron Kuder for sitting with me to talk about Planet She-Hulk. Planet She-Hulk is on shelves as of this past Wednesday. So if you haven't picked up a copy, please do so. And if you can't find one anywhere, it's probably because I bought most of the covers and I have a few here. If you want one, make me an offer or not. But again, thanks to those guys for sitting with me, and I truly had an awesome time before recording and after, talking about my thoughts on everything with the series. When the solicit came out with regards to She-Hulk or Planet She-Hulk, there were no signs as far as it being a miniseries. I would assume that it is, but I hope that it's not. I'm hoping that we can get at least 12 issues out of it. I think a character such as She-Hulk deserves it. A character who's been around as long as she has. And we know that Marvel can sometimes cut things short. Just X. Kelly Thompson on Black Widow and how that ended after it was done so wonderfully. And sensational She-Hulk from Rainbow Rowell. But I'm hoping we get a lot of issues with Planet She-Hulk. Again, if you haven't read it yet, go pick it up. It's out on shelves now. And you can actually put your orders in for issues 2 as well as 3 is already in the solicits for issue number 3 for Planet She-Hulk. But with that being said, let's go and jump into my top 5. I haven't given a top 5 in quite a while, so it's going to feel a little different doing that. But I just hadn't had time with a lot of stuff going on with work and traveling and things of that nature. But with that being said, let's go on and jump into my top 5 books from this past week. New Comic Book Day, November the 5th, 2025. Okay, kicking things off this week, my number 5 book, and it was actually a little tough coming up with the number 5 book. I had a 4-way tie, and it came down between Godzilla number 4, Speed Racer number 4, Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu, and ultimately the book that I did settle on, G.I. Joe number 13, written by Joshua Williamson with art from Tom Rowley over at Skybound Image. And it is the beginning of the Dreadnought War. And with the Dreadnought War, we have Duke in his quest on finding out more about the Transformers, after the death of his friend during the miniseries, and in the beginning of Transformers at that. But it also goes along with Williamson's Cobra Commander miniseries that introduced Cobra Commander of the Energon universe to readers. And in that miniseries, he kind of infiltrated, played the Dreadnoks before killing some of them. Well, in the Dreadnought War, and we see it here with the beginning of this issue, with this issue being part one. We see that Ripper, who is a dreadnought himself, kind of get manipulated by Destro into turning on Cobra Commander as they go on this mission to find some Energon that their sensors had picked up on. But what we also see is that the Joes have also picked up on this signal, that's out there in the desert. And in turn, Duke goes to scope it out as well. Again, he is obsessed with learning all he can about the energy that these robots that have made their way to Earth are all going crazy about. It's the same energy that Cobra is using to make their weapons. So he wants to know the tie-ins between the two. And so he sets out, in the hope of finding this energy source as well. And when arriving at the scene in the desert, he realizes that Cobra is there. And he can't signal the Joes because the signals are jammed. And the signals are jammed because Ripper has decided to make his move and go after Cobra Commander for what he's done to the rest of the Dreadnoks. So much so that he put a call in to the remaining Dreadnoks to meet him out at this spot in the desert so that they can have fun taking out the man that is responsible for the death of a lot of their compatriots in the Dreadnoks. And so all of that is playing out, and Duke decides, well, no, I can't have anything happen to Cobra Commander because he probably knows as much about Energon that, anyone else would know. He may know more about these robots. He has to get, as much information as he possibly can before, anything happens to Cobra Commander. So he basically saves Cobra Commander from getting killed by Ripper and take off. And so that's really how the issue ends, after, of course, back at Cobra headquarters, Destro seems to have made a power move himself in assuming control of Cobra, thinking that pretty much Ripper's gonna succeed in taking out the illustrious Cobra Commander. But again, it was a really quick read. I got through it really fast, but it was filled with action, especially after they made their way to the desert, and we first see Ripper and Cobra Commander, go at it, with Ripper trying to kill him, and then there's a quick fight between Ripper and Duke as Duke comes in to save Cobra Commander, and then we get a final piece with the Dreadnoks showing up and giving chase to Duke and Cobra Commander, who are now fleeing. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out with the Dreadnought War and the aftermath of that, particularly when it comes to Cobra. Again, while Cobra Commander is on the run with Duke, Destro is making power plays to seize control of Cobra itself. And so I will assume that will have some dire consequences for folks. And, as the Dreadnought War come to the end, we'll probably see that all play out. But again, I really enjoyed this. Again, it was a tie between that and three other issues. But this one came out on top simply because of the fact that it's starting this event with the Dreadnought War. So I really wanted to touch upon that. I cannot say enough about Tom Riley's art. He's been on the series from the start, and it has just been, an absolute joy, seeing his version of storytelling with the art that he does on G.I. Joe, and you could tell, just how good he is when just looking at how he draws Duke. I remember when the miniseries first came out a few years ago, Duke was all scruffed up and had the long hair, and now he looks, like the pretty much close to the dude that we all know and love from back in the day with the cartoon. But this has just been a great run from Joshua Williamson and Tom Raleigh on this series. I've absolutely loved it from the start. And, with all the twists and turns from the Baroness being a Joe to now the Dreadnought War starting, it has just been great. Even though there have been no signs of the two words that shall not be said, and that is, Snake Eyes. But just been a fun read, throughout. And, some have said, and there is some agreement that, the story has been good, even though Snake Eyes has not been around. And so, we shall see how the Dreadnought War all plays out as we get to the end of it. This is part one, so we have 4 more to go in the 5-part series. And so I'm excited for it. But again, that is my number 5 book for this week. That is G.I. Joe number 13 from Joshua Williamson and Tom Raleigh over at Skybound Image. Okay, in the number 4 spot, Star Trek Red Shirts number 4, written by Christopher Cantwell with art from Megan Levins over at IDW Publishing. Man, it is so tough being a red shirt these days in Starfleet. Everybody's dying and continues to die, and we get more of that in this issue, as has happened for the previous 3. And so this issue, we lose quite a bit as we lose the team of Midge, Demetrio, Renee Lanier, and Salgado Omega. That was the team that was still left on the planet guarding the antenna relay, and they got themselves into that ship, and they attempted to cause some trouble between the Romulans and the Klingons, and they paid for it with their lives. And so we are now down to only 2 red shirts remaining in Ensign Chip Miller and Ensign Zaina Rod. And they themselves, they're not all that better off anyway. They're being tortured by the Klingons after being captured. But we know that the Klingons realize that they've been getting spied on by the Federation, despite having some type of truce, and they're not happy about it. They want the evidence of what the Federation is doing, and so they are attempting to acquire the access codes from both Miller and Rod, who are doing quite a job in withstanding the pain and not giving in to the torture to reveal those access codes, by simply giving their name, rank, and their Starfleet number. And so that torture is going on before Miller is able to get the upper hand and take out his torturer before saving Rod as well, while they're on this Klingon ship. But we also know that the Romulans are there. The Romulans have the data disk that has this information about what the Federation has been listening to with regards to the Klingons. And instead of having their hatred of the Klingons continue in a war with that Klingon ship, the leader of the Romulans, not necessarily the captain, but the emissary that's on the ship, wants to basically create an alliance with the Romulans and put in a situation of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And he's willing to give the he's willing to give the Klingons the data disk and allow them onto their warbird, but he wants the red shirts. He apparently there's some information that's not on the data disk, but something that they may have. But he wants the red shirts for himself, and so that's kind of how the issue ended. As I mentioned, every issue we've seen somebody die. We've seen a member of Starfleet die. And from the beginning, Miller and Rod have been my two favorite characters. Both human, and they both seem to be the most vulnerable of the crew members. They're both ensigns, so they are of the lowest rank. And I don't know, they also seem to have a connection with one another. So those have been the two that I've always wanted to see survive this when everything was said and done with red shirts. But considering how each issue has come around with at least one red shirt losing his or her life, I'm wondering if it's time to start counting down to one or the other losing their life, whether it's Chip or whether it's Zaina. Again, I hope that by the time it's all said and done that they both would survive, but yeah, I'm thinking Christopher Cantwell is going to kill one of them off, and it might be Zaina, considering throughout the series Chip has been telling the story, or at least it's assumed to be Chip, considering all of the events that have happened to him. And yeah, I can't see it not being anyone but Chip who survives all of this when it's all said and done. But again, I hope to be wrong and both of them survive, but I just don't see it happening. So that's from a story standpoint. The art has always been absolutely joyful to look at from Megan Levins, and the colors from Charlie Cherkoff is really good as well as you go from issue to issue. And just the war sequence between the ships as they orbit the planet. But there's this one page where the ship that the Starfleet officers are on, and it's an ancient ship. It's not all that powerful at all, but it packs a wallop with the one shot that it was able to get off. That blast and the colors within that blast were just beautiful as it sent disruption through the Romulan warbird. And yeah, I've really been enjoying this series. All of the Star Trek books have been great, and I know I've mentioned how when we had the two, I don't want to say competing titles, but when we had the two titles in the same universe with the main Star Trek book and Defiant, how I enjoyed Cantwell's work on Defiant more than I enjoyed the writing from Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing on the main Star Trek title. But yeah, the Star Trek universe over at IDW, especially this iteration of it, has just been such a joy to read. And even though that universe from Cantwell and Lansing and Kelly is over, it's so enjoyable to see them stick around to produce some new stuff over with IDW on Star Trek, and Lansing and Kelly are doing The Last Starship right now, which I am absolutely loving as well. Jeremy actually have done 2 spoiler-free reviews of both issues 2 and 3 that are up on the website if you want to check those out. But for this story here, I'm just absolutely loving it. I'm just hating, now that we are down to the final 2, that we are likely going to get one more death, if not both of them dying off. And if that happens, it'll be interesting to see how Cantwell brings that about. But I am hoping that by the time the series ends, that both Zaina and Chip are able to come out of this alive. But we shall see. But that is my number 4 book for this week, and that is Star Trek Red Shirts number 4 from writer Christopher Cantwell and artist Megan Levins over at IDW. Okay, in the number 3 spot, Void Rivals number 24, written by Robert Kirkman with art from Connor Hughes over at Skybound Image. So the Quintessence War is coming, and everything is really falling into place for that to happen. So we know that all of the key players have kind of turned their back on Zerda. Celia has turned on her. Zaliak has turned his back on the ways of Zerda, and unity never happened. So the unity of the Agorians and the Zertonians didn't occur. We know that was supposed to bring about Goliath coming back out of the dark hole that's within the sacred ring, and the sacred ring and the Energon from that destroying him, since Goliath is supposed to be weakened due to the Energon. But we see that that's not happening now because of unity not occurring. And there is a lot going on here that is pretty much setting up what we are about to get with the Quintessence War. And Zerda is again saying, she's basically saying it's coming, and she tries to get Celia to come back to her ways and to make sure that that doesn't happen by getting unity to occur. But it doesn't happen, so she basically takes back all of the power that she gave to Celia, and she's done with her. And in the end, we find that she has been made a prisoner by the cult that worships Zerda, and she's trapped somewhat. She still has an android there with her who I assume is going to help her escape. But we see a couple of other things that happen. First off, Hot Rod and Springer are leaving. They've been given all of the energy that they need, all of the energon that they need to help out back home on Cybertron, and they set off. But we also see that Pythonia and the citizens of Cobra La are looking to make their way somewhere. They are, at least Pythonia is trying to get on one of the Quintessence ships to see the plans that they have laid out, especially now that they are leaving, and using Wheelie to learn more, not only about Cybertron, but also the Quintessence. And it's weird to see how all of that's going to play out. And again, this is the closest that we're going to get to a crossover for right now. That kind of exists with what happened with the folks that existed in Cobra Commander, that miniseries, and the folks over at Void Rivals. But I think it's worthy to kick things off. The other thing that's happening is all of the Skullzoid clones seem to be getting ready to rebel and begin fighting for themselves. So that little interplay is always fun to see with those characters. But I am almost certain that Robert Kirkman has a much bigger plan for not just Skullzoid Prime, but all of the clones that have been birthed or divided from him, but we shall see. And I don't know. I don't know which war I am going to enjoy most once they're all started. We've already seen that the Dreadnought War is going on in G.I. Joe, but I am. Something tells me I may enjoy the Quintessence War much better than the Dreadnought War, but that's only because I've been more of a fan in Void Rivals than I have with G.I. Joe, and that's not saying that I don't enjoy G.I. Joe. I have absolutely loved G.I. Joe from the start, going all the way back to the Duke first miniseries that came out several years ago. But I don't know, I guess because of what's going on in the world that's being built with Void Rivals, especially knowing how new it is, and with the exception of the characters from Cobra and Transformers that have shown up or that are regulars in the series, everything that we're getting from Void Rivals is new. So I can only expect that once we get deep into the Quintessence War, we're going to get a lot of new stuff that, we may not have seen before, especially, once Goliath makes his way from the Sacred Ring. I just can't see that not happening. But I would be surprised if it does. But on the art, so if you followed me as I've talked the many times that I've talked about Void Rivals and how much I have always loved the art from Lorenzo De Felici, I wasn't sure how things would be once Connor Hughes came on the title, but let me tell you, I have been pleasantly surprised with the art from Connor Hughes. It is really good. I absolutely love it. There isn't that much difference from what Lorenzo De Felici produced in the time that he was on the title. But one of the things that I have noticed that is really different with how Connor Hughes draws is how he draws the Agorians and the Zertonians. They appear much more human-like to me, and yeah, I find that, I don't want to say I find that pleasing, but it looks slightly better. I definitely enjoyed the somewhat stylized look that Lorenzo De Felici had when he was drawing on the title, but looking at them now, I'm pleasantly surprised, and I am surprisingly pleased with the art from Connor Hughes on the title. So we're getting ready for the Quintessence War. I have no clue what will happen other than us likely getting the reveal of Goliath, but we shall see, and I will continue following this story. It continues to be my favorite of the Energon universe, and I'm just ready for the next issue to come out, particularly as we get into the Quintessence War to see what comes of it. But that is my number 3 book for this week, Void Rivals, number 24, written by Robert Kirkman with art from Connor Hughes over at Skybound Image. Okay, in the number 2 spot, Absolute Green Lantern number 8, written by Al Ewing with art from Janoy Lindsay over at DC Comics. So short and sweet, this was a backstory looking at Joe growing up in Evergreen and becoming the person who she is. And with this story, we see that there are a lot of trials and tribulations that she goes through. From being a kid, arriving in Evergreen with her dad after he and her mother divorced, to meeting Renee at the Evergreen Police Department while she was an officer there, from the corruption that was going on in the Evergreen Police Department, how some of those officers who would turn out to be good cops kept their heads down because of it, to her meeting Cameron Chase, falling in love with Cameron Chase, marrying Cameron Chase, reuniting with Renee Montoya, sleeping with Renee Montoya multiple times, before telling Cameron Chase about the affair and how that all just destroyed things with their relationship, to returning to Evergreen after the death of her father and meeting with John and working with him at his architectural firm, only to end where things ended up in the previous issue, in issue number 7, where she and Hal show up at Cameron's door looking for help. So yes, it was a good turn of events to go full circle to get back to where we were at the end of issue number 7, but getting that backstory and learning how Joe has grown through these times was a really good story, was a very good telling and script from Al Ewing, and I really enjoyed what he did and how he plotted. Again, it's a story that probably couldn't have been told or didn't need to be told, but I'm glad it was told, because again, it helps highlight who Joe is as a person and the events in her life that made her who she is today. There was the one point where she wasn't sure of her sexuality before realizing that she was queer. There was the notion of being a good cop and letting her principal stand up and leave the Evergreen police force after learning of the police chief's corruption, and the regret for not doing more. All of those events in that backstory lead us to who Joe Mullion is today, and I think that was a great way to introduce us to that backstory and to who she is in the Absolute universe. But absolutely loved it. If not for the number 1 book, I could have easily seen this being my top book. The art from Janoy Lindsay, as always, just really good in his style of pen and colors. He does his own colors in the series, and everything was just great about it. The variant covers were of course always far better than the main cover. Not saying that the main cover is bad, but I've always had a thing for the variant covers, particularly with Absolute Green Lantern, and how it depicts Joe's strength and sexuality. There's no doubt that she is a sexy woman, and you could see it not only in the variant covers but also throughout the issue. There were a few panels within the issue where she's not necessarily in a crop top but in a cut-off t-shirt, and you could see the muscles in her arms and in her abs, and it just shows off a combination of strength and sexiness that is very nice to see in a woman. And I just enjoy how I enjoy how Janoy Lindsay make a point of pinpointing and highlighting that in his art, but also in the variant covers that we got from the cover artists who contributed to this issue. But if not for Martian Manhunter, Absolute Martian Manhunter. This would probably be my number two book in the Absolute universe after Absolute Wonder Woman, and it might even give Absolute Wonder Woman a run for its money for the top spot, if not for Martian Manhunter. But that is my number two book for this week, Absolute Green Lantern, number 8, from writer Al Ewing and artist Janoy Lindsay over at DC Comics. So, of course, there's a little doubt as to what my number one book for this week is. That would be Planet She-Hulk, number 1, written by the aforementioned Stephanie Phillips with art from Aaron Kuder over at Marvel Comics. So some might say that this is a stretch, but let me give you my thoughts as to why I really thought that this was, well, the best book for this week. Again, it's my thoughts, so yeah, fits the bill. But it's more than just the fanboy in me that is picking this book to be my top one for the week. There were some good moments in this, and there were some moments that really have me thinking about what's to come in this series, no matter how many issues it turns out to be. So, as we mentioned in the interview, Jennifer Walters is doing her best to maintain who she is as She-Hulk. She is still Jennifer Walters. But if you notice throughout the issue, if you've read it, Sakaar is definitely tugging at her and who she is as an individual, with its customs, with the level of violence and hostility. And a person can only take so much of that. Now, of course, for someone like Bruce Banner, it's, especially in Hulk form, it's much more easier to succumb to the level of violence and hostility that is Sakaar. But I mean, you see what is happening there. Jen is constantly breaking up fights, constantly being a mediator, and protecting herself from the hostilities that is Sakaar. But you could see this dark cloud that is new Sakaar just tugging and poking at her. And I'm wondering just how long the Jennifer Walters that we know will last. Now, we haven't seen Jen in a different manner, and I'm not even gonna talk about the Jason Aaron and McGinnis version that I hated in the Avengers. I'm gonna go back to Mariko Tamaki's rendition of the character, that arc that she did after Civil War II, where, while still in her right mind, Jen was just a vicious beast. And I'm wondering if we get close to that again. Not from the sense of her losing her personality, but succumbing to the realization that she just has to be violent in order to be successful. And yeah, I know she wants to get off of Sakaar or New Sakaar, but I don't think that's happening. Hence the title Planet She-Hulk. But I think something is going to happen, and I don't believe that it was Irene's death, but there is going to be something that happens that I think will just trigger her to where she has to be someone who she typically is not. And I'm here for it. I am ready to see Jen come out of her shell even more so than what she's done in Rainbow Rowell's run. And I'm ready to see her be a little bit more violent. Again, I have no doubt she's not going to become violent to the level of her cousin, or I definitely don't see that. But I can definitely see her really, being more violent and not have a problem putting some folks in their place permanently. And like I said, I want to be here for that. I want to see that new side of the character, and I think it's going to happen. But again, that's my opinion. But I'm excited to see Jen at the forefront again in her own series. I think over the last year or so, especially since the Rowell series ended, she's been wrongly used, whether it was in Avengers Assemble or any of the other stories that she's popped up in. I think She-Hulk is too important of a character with too much history of a character to not be regularly used. I mean, frankly, I can definitely see her in an ongoing of her own. Because again, you're talking to someone who just loved the Rainbow Rowell series that ended a few years ago. So I'm here for it. Again, one last thought on the art from Aaron Kuder. It's so beautiful, and as I mentioned in the interview, the way the style changed up even a little bit with just little touches as you went from time period to time period was really beautiful, and a nice touch from him. But there were certain panels, and I can talk about that first one off and on consistently for how good it looked with Jen, jumping with the broadsword, or a couple other panels again when she's fighting the monster to honor the wedding of Blackjaw. But the art and the colors were just great, and I'm excited for everything with regards to this series. And again, that's not just the fanboy in me. That's not just the She-Hulk fanboy in me. And yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes, and seeing She-Hulk at the forefront of seeing She-Hulk at the forefront of a series. But again, that is my number one book for this week. Planet She-Hulk #1 from Stephanie Phillips and Aaron Kuder over at Marvel Comics. And so there you have it, my top 5 books for this past week. And with that being said, we've reached the end of our podcast. So what's on tap for next week? Well, next week we'll be doing some more reviews as I give my top 5 for titles releasing on November the 12th. We're getting closer and closer to the holiday season. But here's what we're looking at as far as books that are in contention to making the top 5. First up, over at Marvel, we have Ultimate Wolverine #11. We also have The Amazing Spider-Man Torn #2. And then we also have the second issue of Spider-Man Noir and Rogue Storm #2. And then we have the second issue of Frost and Iron Man, their little series, so Iron and Frost #2. Then we have the 4th issue of Marvel Knights, The World to Come from Joe Quesada and Christopher Priest. And then moving on over to DC, over at DC Comics, we have Batman 162. We finally get another issue of Hush 2. Then we also have Batman and Robin #27. We have the final issue of Dark Patterns, Batman Dark Patterns #12 from Dan Waters. I really enjoyed that. It came a long way from when it first started and scared the hell out of me and Steph. But then we also have Supergirl number 7, Green Lantern Corps number 10, and then we have the final issue of Mr. Terrific Year 1 with Mr. Terrific Year 1 number 6. And then we have a new series, Batman Static Beyond, crossover between Batman Beyond and Static Virgil Hawkins. That's the first issue that's out next week as well. I'm hoping I can get the creators for that series on the show one day, Evan Narcisse and Nicholas Draper Ivy, as this is the spinoff, at least I think it's a spinoff from the story that appeared a few years ago in the milestone 30th anniversary issue that DC put out. Moving on over to Image Comics, we have Transformers number 26, the second issue in the new run from Jonathan Hickman with art from Dan Mora. Then we also have Blood and Thunder number 7. I've really been enjoying that. That's been low-key underrated. Then we also get a new series, Die Loaded 1, which is a spinoff of the series Die from Karen Gillan. So that is also out from Image Comics. And then we get issue number 3 of Artificial, that story from Marie Lovelet that Beastfire has been reviewing on the website. Over at IDW. So at IDW we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Journey number 3. We also have the 4th issue of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees the Rite of Spring. This is the 4th issue of that second volume of the series. So that's also out on this coming Wednesday. Then we also have, in the world of Star Trek, we have Lower Decks number 13. That's out on this coming Wednesday, as well as issue number 3 of Strange New World, The Seeds of Salvation. So Adam, who's been reviewing that, hasn't been too high on it, but we'll take a look. And then we also get Event Horizon, Dark Descent number 3, that's also out. And then we also get the second issue of Street Sharks, the series from Stephanie Williams that looks at the old cartoon show that's now out on shelves. Over at Boom Studios, we have issue number 25, the final issue. The final issue, I believe it is, of Grimm from Stephanie Phillips, who's just on the show. Moving on over to Dark Horse, we have American Caper number 1. I'm going to take a look at that, see what it's all about. And then we have a new Hellboy series that is coming out. So Hellboy and the BPRD, the Ghost Ships of Labrador number 1. It will be out on shelves. And then finally, I think I'm going to move on over to Mad Cave Studios. And over at Mad Cave, we have a new series, Liquidator number 1. But we also get another issue of the Flash Gordon Quarterly. So this is Flash Gordon Quarterly number 5. And then finally, over at Mad Cave, we get Red Vector number 4. But that's a good bit of titles that I'll be looking at this coming week to see which ones will make its way into my top 5. But again, I want to thank you all for joining me for this episode, the Comic Ben Comic Book Podcast. Again, thank you for watching, and actually, if you can, please hit the subscribe button, get notifications for when the next episode is out. But until next time, I will see you all later. That is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Ben Comic Book Podcast. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support of the program. The Comic Bin Podcast, as well as the Comic Book Spot, are a part of the Comic Book Source family of sites and media. You can follow the podcast on Twitter X at comic_bin, or my personal account at batmanfan_4life. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. We're all over social media. You can also follow our sister site over at thebatmanuniverse.net for all of your news and reviews in the world of Batman. Tune in next time as we give you more in the world of comic books. Again, we truly appreciate your support. But until we meet again next time, keep reading those comics.